Some breaking news now from the United States, and Matt Gaetz says he is withdrawing his nomination to be Attorney General in the new Donald Trump administration. He'd come under a huge amount of scrutiny, and he has put a statement out on X, on Twitter, of course, as it was, saying, "I had excellent meetings with senators yesterday. I appreciate their thoughtful feedback and the incredible support of so many. While the momentum was strong," says Matt Gaetz, "it is clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump-Vance transition." He says there is no time to waste on a protracted Washington scuffle, as he puts it. Therefore, he says, "I'll be withdrawing my name from consideration to serve as Attorney General." He goes on to say that he thinks Donald Trump will, as he puts it, save America. And of course, you may know that Matt Gaetz had become really a very, very key pick for Donald Trump because he was going to be in charge of the Justice Department, but he needed the support during confirmation hearings in January of senators, and he'd been meeting and greeting a lot of those people this week. It's thought a lot of calls going in to try and get their support, because he had been a controversial figure in the House of Representatives as a congressman, and he had pulled out of Congress when he was appointed. He pulled out of the House when he was appointed by Donald Trump to be his Attorney General, but he had faced in the past an investigation by the House, which was due to report last Friday on allegations that involved child sexual abuse, trafficking, and also drugs allegations, which he, of course, vehemently denied. So he has denied any wrongdoing in the past, and the administration is now taking shape. Donald Trump's picks, of course, but Matt Gaetz is not going to be Attorney General. He says he's withdrawing his nomination. Let's go to Washington and speak to our North America correspondent, Gary O'Donoghue. Gary, tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge blow, really, to Donald Trump and his transition team. This was possibly the most high-profile of his nominees, certainly the most shocking and controversial of his nominees. And this is something about a week after this nomination was announced that it's had to withdraw. And I think it follows really a day of meetings yesterday on Capitol Hill, where Matt Gaetz was with the Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, talking to senators on the key Judiciary Committee that would have done that kind of process of vetting before the floor vote by the Senate, which has to confirm nominees for the cabinet. And you can see, I think, in his statement where he talks about the feedback he had from senators yesterday. I think that's a euphemism for some probably telling him he's not going to get nominated. And he adds in the statement, "It is clear that my confirmation was unfairly," as he puts it, "becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump-Vance transition. There is no time to waste," he says, "on a needlessly protracted Washington scuffle." And so he clearly believed that there was going to be a huge battle over his nomination. We were already hearing words of doubt from some Republican senators on that Judicial Committee and more generally in the Senate. And bear in mind, he could really only have lost 3 Republican senators before it became a real problem. And I think probably they've decided that this wasn't worth it.
Why was he so controversial, Gary?
He was hugely controversial for a couple of reasons. One is that there are a number of allegations against him about sexual and financial impropriety. There was an ethics committee investigation into him in Congress that is still going on. That report hasn't yet been published. There were allegations about him paying young women for sex. There were allegations about him having sex with an underage girl as well. All of that evidence had been heard by the ethics committee. Important to say that the Department of Justice did investigate Matt Gaetz for any criminal liability, and they decided not to charge him. They decided last year not to charge him, so he faced no criminal charges. Nevertheless, the Ethics Committee thought there was enough to carry on their investigation. He's always denied those allegations of wrongdoing, both the sexual allegations and the financial ones. But there was a lot of noise around him. The other thing to say is that Matt Gaetz was short of friends in Congress. He was part of a very small number that ousted the Republican Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, who he blamed for initiating this ethics inquiry against him. He was very sort of forthright, very outspoken about criticising people within his own party. He didn't have a lot of capital, if you like, on Capitol Hill. And so when push came to shove, when he needed support, it wasn't really there.
Gary, the position of Attorney General might not seem a natural, a really key one in other governments around the world. But in the Trump administration that is coming in, it was seen as really crucial. Again, can you explain just why that is?
Yeah, I mean, not just seen. I mean, they said so. They said, the Trump transition, that this was the most important pick he was going to make, the Attorney General. And the reason is because Donald Trump has believed for the last 8 years that the US Department of Justice, the organisation responsible for all federal law enforcement in this country, he believed it was out to get him, that it was involved in witch hunts, the phrases he used, it was involved in smears, it was part of what he used to call the deep state, that it had a vendetta against Donald J. Trump. So he very much wanted, and he tried in his first term, if you remember, to put people into the DOJ who would do his bidding. That didn't happen. His first Attorney General announced the special counsel inquiry on the Russia connection, which didn't result in any wrongdoing or finding of any wrongdoing by Donald Trump, although it said it didn't exonerate him either. But he believed that his Attorney Generals in that first administration, Jeff Sessions, William Barr, that they didn't really do it for him. They didn't really come to the wicket on his behalf. So he has been determined this time around to mould the DOJ very much to his will. And he thought clearly that Matt Gaetz was someone that would have done that, and probably Matt Gaetz would have done that if he'd had the chance. Now there'll have to be a major rethink, and this is a huge stumble, if you like, for the Trump transition team. I think Donald Trump also viewed this nomination as a sort of test of loyalty, if you like, amongst Republicans in Congress. You know, this is a controversial guy, you owe me, so give me this guy, I really want him. And it has proved not to be effective. Those Republicans in the Senate, many of them are very MAGA, very loyal to Donald Trump, but there are some that just won't budge on this sort of thing. And that seems to be what's happened this time because the margins are small.
Very big development there in the US, in Washington. Gary, thanks so much for being with us and talking us through it. Gary O'Donoghue there.